Welcome everyone, Tactical H here, and today we have a Night Crew clan civil war between two clanmates, Bavrat on the green side, and on the red side I believe it is Cool Umbrella. For the army builds here, Bavrat is going for a Dark Elf army, a front line of 3 Dread Spears backed up by a ton of Black Corsairs, providing a lot of skirmishing firepower, plus being heavily armored and having decent melee stats. They can actually beat back the pursuit of the Khorne dogs. For the mobility, we have a bunch of Khorne Knights, one of them the Khorne Dread Knight, and also a Dark Rider with shields. In the skies, leading the army, we have Malekith on Seraphon, bringing, of course, the lore of Soul Stealer, and that's basically it for the Dark Elf army. On the other side here, Valkia the Bloody leading the Khorne army, a front line of Khorne Marauders, one of them with dual weapons for that anti-infantry bonus, and a ton of mobility to counteract the Dark Elf skirmish game. Going quite heavy on the Khorne dogs here, 2 Flash Hounds and 2 Warhounds, a ton of mobility really. On the other side, more Chaos Warhounds and Flash Hounds. Just really trying to use that mobility to pressure the Dark Elf units and run down their positions. There's also 3 Throwing Axes Marauder Horsemen and 2 more Furies in the skies. Also a bit of a monstrous anti-large presence, we have the Minotaurs of Khorne with great weapons. That's it for army builds, and now let's get the battle started. On a wider angle, we can see that the Khorne army is a lot wider than the Dark Elf army. After all, the Dark Elf did invest a lot on their mobility and back line, having the relatively expensive Black Arc Corsairs with hand bows, while the elite Khorne Dread Knights and Khorne Knights will be holding the flank. And on the other side of the battlefield, the Khorne army just going for a full chaff front line and some relatively cheap and cost-efficient mobility. Flash Hounds and Warhounds just trying to move to a flanking position here, advancing through the forest under that kind of cover. On the other side, same goes for the Flash Hounds and Warhounds, although the Khorne Knights are in position to counteract and intercept. In the front line though, Malekith is trying to do some sneaky dive bombs, but the nearby throwing axes means that he needs to back out before taking too much damage from the armor-piercing fire. Now in the front line there, with the Marauder Horsemen getting a little too close to the Dark Elf front line, some of the Corsairs are able to counter fire at them, doing some pretty good damage. The Marauders are also getting hit, but they do have that 35% of missile block chance with their bronze shields, so a lot of that damage is actually mitigated. That unfortunately does not apply to their horsemen brethren, because the Khorne horsemen do not have shields. Instead they have dual wielding axes for that anti-infantry bonus. Anyways, at the back here, Warhounds, Flash Hounds jumping into combat, but Khorne Knights and Dark Riders are here to intercept them. And in the front line, there's Spear of Sleipnir blasting away some of these Dread Spears, allowing the Marauders to cut through the Dread Spears faster. On the right flank of the Dark Elves, the Khorne Knights and Dread Knights are taking a lot of damage. They are indeed anti-large and armored, but unfortunately for them, the Flash Hounds do have a lot of weapon strength at 58 plus 46 charge bonus, having solid melee attack stats, while the Khorne Dread Knights and regular Khorne Knights have rather mediocre melee stats for an expensive heavy armored cavalry. So they are actually taking a lot of damage from this overwhelming force of Khorne dogs, while the Soul Stealer from Malekith doing some very minor damage to the Warhounds and Flash Hounds. You can see that the Flash Hounds didn't really take that much damage with their 50% of spell resistance. Malekith unfortunately didn't get much damage done, and at this point he has to pull back because most of his infantry frontline is collapsing. With less supporting units, Malekith would not trade well against Valkia the Bloody. At the same time, Marauders pushing through Dark Elf defenses are threatening the Black Corsairs. Dark Elf's Dread Spears are actually pretty meh as a defensive unit because unlike the High Elf Spearmen, they do not have any defensive buffs. Now Marauders and Furies are able to drive away the Dark Elf skirmishers, preventing them from supporting the front line. There are still some Dread Spears holding on, but even with the murderous prowess, they are not gonna win against the Marauders of Khorne who have additional attack stats. The Marauder Horsemen of Khorne are also moving closer to the front line, trying to throw their axes into Dark Riders and Khorne Knights, whittling down their hit points, while the Black Corsairs counterfire back. Black Corsairs are mostly free from any harassment right now, as most of the Khorne forces are still stuck in the front line on some tattered Dread Spears who are about to break, or these still holding Khorne cavalry, but here comes the tactical reserve of Minotaurs. They actually have seen quite a bit of action already, not a lot of kills, but quite a bit of damage value as they were trying to hunt down Malekith earlier in the battle. Funny enough, even after running away from the Minotaurs, Malekith has been on the run ever since, being constantly chased down by Valkia and her Furies. He's using some Soul Stealer to drain away the health of the Murder Horseman, and actually it hit everything around him as well, even Valkia the Bloody, but that's not gonna do too much damage to the spell-resisted Khorne army, and the pursuing Khorne forces have more DPS than his healing can keep up with. Unfortunately for the Dark Elf Lord, there are no units nearby to help him screen away the Khorne worshippers. On the ground, the Black Corsairs are holding their own pretty well against the Khorne dog spam. Their heavy armor does help them mitigate some of the non-armor piercing damage, although they're still not a primary melee fighter and the trading would not be too cost efficient. And they need to get out of that position as soon as possible, perhaps with the cover from some Dread Spears. Anyways, Malekith is still running away from Valkia, not daring to challenge her right now with the Fury support, while the Black Corsairs trying their best to shoot down whatever's nearby and whittle down the rest of the Khorne forces. Balance of power is in favor of Khorne because of how damaged Malekith is. Valkia has been really persistent in hunting down the Dark Elf Lord. There is this one unit of Minotaur on the far side. Finally, after cleaning up some Code 1 cavalry, will be going into frontline combat. That also put them in range of the crossfire from the Black Corsairs. They do have to be careful because their 70 armor is not enough to handle a barrage of crossbow bolts, even if they're not armor piercing. Their large hitbox also makes them exceptional target for the Black Corsairs to pincushion. Anyways, Valkia still chasing Malekith. Malekith still not daring to fight back. Actually, I think it would be better for Malekith if he just moves into the Black Corsairs and let the Black Corsairs fight Valkia, because she is really not that good in fighting blobs of enemy units. I've seen her fighting a bunch of Marauder Horsemen and it still takes her forever to go through them. Anyways, these Black Corsairs got hit hard by a Khorne sword, while at the back there, the Minotaurs are finally in the front line. They are taking some shots from the Black Corsairs and the damage is quite significant, especially with Malekith blasting them with the Bad Breath, the Noxious Breath, and close melee attacks. But the thing is, they're now surrounding Malekith and fighting back. Malekith desperately trying to move out of combat, but just a couple Minotaurs are more than enough to keep him stuck on the ground, unable to extract himself from this engagement. He is getting quickly whittled down, being beaten up by so many angry bulls. And with that, Malekith has been shattered, army losses is hit, and this Khorne army will be securing this resounding victory. GG to both players in this battle. For the army performances, Bavrat definitely going for a pretty interesting strategy here, similar to how Dark Elves countered Beastmen, using Black Corsairs to kite away, shoot down any incoming threats. And it theoretically can do pretty good here, as the Black Corsairs did earn back quite a bit of value against the lightly armored Khorne infantry and Khorne dogs. The problem is that Malekith has been constantly pressured by Valkia and the Furies, unable to get a good fight as the rest of the supporting elements, all the Khorne cavalry, the Dark Riders, are all crumbling under the overwhelming force of Khorne mobility, while the Dread Spears here just a rather fragile spear unit, unable to hold back the tide of Khorne marauders. The marauders getting some pretty good value overall, pushing through the Dread Spears and pressure the Black Corsairs, but unfortunately the Black Corsairs heavy armor does help the Dark Elves to win their fight, or at least withstand the push of the marauders of Khorne. Unfortunately for the Dark Elves, the Khorne dogs did get a lot of damage value. They are able to overwhelm the Dark Elf mobility here with decent weapon strength, and the Khorne Knights and Dread Knights, not having the greatest melee stats, were not trading well into the Khorne Dogs, who does have additional physical resistance to mitigate incoming damage. As for the Minotaurs getting a lot of damage, they managed to go after Malekith in the early game, doing some great initial shock damage, forcing Malekith to go on the run, and ever since he started running, he never stopped, just trying constantly to get away from Valkia, but Valkia plus the Furies did not let him to do that. I do have to say that risky charge from Malekith in the end might have just cost the Dark Elves the game. They did have a chance to win, but Malekith diving down, getting trapped among a bunch of Minotaurs and getting hacked down was definitely the fatal blow that tipped the scale on the balance of power. If Bavarat was a bit more patient, trying to use up more of those crossbow bolts, whittling down more health from the Minotaurs before charging in Malekith, maybe, just maybe, Malekith would have a way better chance in winning this game. Anyways, that's it for today's battle. I hope you enjoyed the action, and if you want to see more Total War Warhammer multiplayer, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.